Hi everyone, this is Nadia Pilwasha and I am Program Manager RxFiler, leading multiple teams from sales, marketing, and product. So today we are going to talk about the most significant topic in healthcare industry, and that is uh, 340B rebate model, the new Beacon and ESP-led submissions. We'll be talking about how new HRSA-driven rebate model is going to bring huge impact on operational, technical compliance aspects of TPA and CE operations. So, this is an internally recorded webinar, and we will be covering some topics like what HRSA has announced so far and why that matters, how the rebate model differs from the traditional upfront 340B discount model, and what are the key requirements from HRSA for manufacturers, Beacon, ESP, and state programs. So, this is our starting point, and in the upcoming weeks, we'll be coming up with more topics around this main shift. Now, before we move forward, I would like to thank and acknowledge the team who has been working with me, and we'll have a brief introduction of them as well. I have Salman with me, who is leading product strategy and vision. I have Mudassir with me, who is taking care of all engineering wing. And I'd like to hand over the session to presenter Salman Asif.
Right. So thanks a lot, Nadia, for brief introduction about the team and setting the tone and agenda for us today in order for us to have a successful session. And thanks everyone for joining in today. And as you have heard, this is Salman Asif. I lead product and strategy for RxFiler. And in this session, we want to talk about what it actually means to be a rebate ready TPA. The topic is going to focus on a claims engine playbook for the 340B rebate era. We're going to keep this focused on submissions and the processing of claims. And please don't consider this a deep dive into legal or policy constraints, but it is about how your data and infrastructure needs to behave so you don't get overwhelmed by requirements set up by Beacon ESP and obviously behind the scenes manufacturers and her site itself, and even the upcoming platforms such as Truzo as well. Moving along, this is a brief introduction about what we have been doing in the ecosystem, what our contributions have been so far in the 340B era. We have been working in the US and healthcare technology in the 340B space within the TPA technology and infrastructure side to help design, build claims, and submission engines that sit behind TPAs and service providers. Our work tends to live right at the intersection of program rules, data pipelines, and product strategy. How do we turn messy real world claims into something that satisfies manufacturers and platform requirements set up by Beacon and ESP and covered entities at the same time? That is has been the core of our overall contribution, and we have been aligning the requirements and system designs with these platforms and requirements over the years. Now, moving along, talking about what has been changing in the 340B era and what specifically we have upcoming and how it was working before. Just a quick, overview and into that part of the history as well. So let me start with a bit of a backdrop. Traditionally, a lot of the 340B benefit was provided upfront, as we are all aware. Cover entities needed to buy at 340B prices of selective drugs, or they had a contract pharmacy arrangement set up as well, and the economics were baked into the purchase mechanism. Now, with the rebate model pilot, which is of course is for a defined list of drugs provided by HRSA, the covered entities will need to buy at WAC, which is the wholesaler acquisition cost. And after claims are submitted and validated, only then the covered entities will be able to access the rebates. That means timing, data quality, eligibility logics now move to the center of the whole process. If the data is wrong or late, the rebate may not be provided or get delayed, which is, of course, going to be a significant operational challenge for cover entities to handle, and onus will be on TPAs to help them with it. If data is if and because manufacturers will be using Beacon and submission vendors as a submission vendor to process these rebate claims, TPAs are going to feel this shift directly in how the claims are handled, and they would need to continuously uproot their progress. And because manufacturers will be using Beacon as the submission vendor to process these rebates claims, TPAs will obviously need to are going to feel this shift directly in how they handle the claim and its impacts as well to help satisfy the requirements of the platforms. Now, specifically talking about where Beacon and ESP fit in the product picture. So here's a very simplified picture of the ecosystem. On the left, we have got covered entities, hospitals, federally qualified health centers, health systems living in in their EHRs, pharmacy systems, billing, and all of that, which we encounter on the daily basis when we are discussing the 340B environment and the technology involved with it. On the right, we have manufacturers who want to make sure they are not double paying discounts and rebates. And in the middle, there are TPAs, obviously, or the service providers aggregating pharmacy and medical claims from multiple sources. ESP is where manufacturer often ask for de-identified contract pharmacy claims so they can manage pricing and duplicate discounts. Well, on the other side, the upcoming platform Beacon is where rebate claims for the pilot drugs will be submitted and processed. So, in practice, you become the translation and validation layer, raw claims, and these external platforms, bridging the gap between the two of them. That's why we are talking here about a claims engine. This layer decides whether Beacon and ESP world feels manageable or painful. So over here, I would also like to engage with our implementation teams manager Mudassar so that he can shed more light into these platforms and how and what is their expected impact since he has been looking deep into the actual implementation of and integration of these platforms.
Yeah, thank you, Salman. So, Beacon and ESP have their own formats and rules and submission requirements, which puts the TPA into the center of translation and providing validation and compliance. So, our utility strengthens this architecture by standardizing data before it reaches to the Beacon or ESP, and by automating the validation that typically cause the rejection. This gives the TPA a cleaner, more predictable pipeline and reduce the manual effort across the ecosystem.
Wonderful. Thanks a lot for that, Mudassar. Moving along, we have brief understanding of what we expect that the cover entities will be looking towards and what they would be expecting from their TPAs or the challenges that their TPAs will eventually have to handle regardless of the technology that they have. So from a covered entities point of view, this is all very simple, right? They just want to know if their TPA is ready for this rebate environment and if you are ready. They're going to ask questions like, can you support beacon submissions of for the drugs that have been listed by HRSA for the rebate pilot program? They're going to be worried about whether you can keep up manufacturer or platform changes and be adaptable enough to accommodate every requirement that comes through those platforms and manufacturers themselves. Because in the end, it does matter for them to stay in the program. It does matter for them to report the compliance from the perspective of audits as well. And they will also be very keen to understand whether you can maintain a whole life cycle of a claim and project the complete story for the whole claim and everything that happened to it during the complete process at each step, because obviously this is going to be very crucial for them to understand their and optimize their operational challenges as well. That translates to expectations around in simple words or to giving in out in few pointers. So reliable consolidation of pharmacy and medical claims is going to be very important, because as we understand that Beacon is going to accept medical claims as well. And on the other side, even ESP is making advancements in terms of modifying their platforms to start accepting medical claims for drugs that are not yet part of the rebate program. And then obviously correct and consistent file duration for Beacon and ESP is going to be very crucial and important. Both of them may have their own requirements, as Mudassar just explained as well, that their technology point of view and from the point of view of a developer, you need to have both of different logics implemented in order to prepare files that are going to be submitted to both the platforms. And obviously, lastly, transparent handling of rejection and exceptions is going to be very crucial here. TPS will need to maintain that sort of visibility for their covered entities, since their technology platforms or themselves would be in charge of looking over this whole process and taking the claims to each step. From this simple dispense to final rebate, they're going to have to maintain that journey within their platforms or their records for in order to provide Cs the audit ready visibility, which is obviously a crucial need for them. So when they pull up a specific claim, they would obviously like a clear story around it. So we expect TPS to be ready for that with the right technology as well. So again, I would like Mudassar to shed some light about these requirements and the challenges that he thinks would be there for TPS to handle in the upcoming rebate era.
Right. So, in today's rebate environment, covered entities expect clarity, readiness, and compliant data from their TPAs. Our utility supports that pre-validation claims for beacon and ESP requirements and consolidating medical and pharmacy feeds into a unified structure. This is the strength of our utility that we are building at the moment, applying consistent and rule driven compliance. So we have a rule engine which executes some of the rules that we will be adding more rules in the future. Our utility provides the full visibility and into the exceptions and the audit trails. So with this utility, the TPAs can deliver accurate files and transparent processing with far less operational stress.
Right. Thank you so much again, Mudassar, for the insights. Moving along, reality check. This is important, and we hope so. This doesn't come out as a surprise to you, because if we are honest about most TPS and what they look like today, it definitely is something like this. They have got multiple feeds, covered entity EHRs, pharmacy systems, switches, maybe wholesalers, and accumulator data as well. All arriving in different formats, different structures, different sources, and at times the data is incomplete, and validations completion is also a part of the process of, in which all of this data has to go through. There's usually a mix of CSV drops, SFTP folders, ETL tools, or custom scripts that have grown over time. And obviously, with the as we understand that the technology was the center of the 340B program, driving these and helping TPS drive their covered entity operations and pharmacy management. This has been something a lot difficult to adhere to, all these adapt changes that have been coming through this industry. And so this has grown over into a complex and an uneven architecture that may not be as simple to expand and scale in the future, or even in coming with the current rebate era, which is bringing a big shift with itself. Manufacturer rules, platform requirements, and exceptions tend to be scattered across SQL jobs, stored procedures, and one-off scripts are there that don't support uh, modifications and handling of cases where the data may vary, where there may be a new platform coming in, where there may be new types of claims that need to be dealt. And at end-to-end logging, it's often patchy. Answering a simple question like "Did the claim get submitted to ESP or Beacon, or what happened to it?" can mean digging through multiple systems and people. We have found this in multiple TPA reports, working with them on the technology perspective, that how they found it very difficult to compile reports and final list of claims to be submitted to these platforms, and yet some of them were failing to conform, or to be accepted by the relevant platforms, even after applying different logics and checks within their systems. Now, adding a layer on top of this for the beacon platform and rebuild flows on top of that, it becomes clear why we need a more deliberate approach to the claims engine. And this time, obviously, it will require a lot more, you can say, a more complex process or a more broad process, which goes from the dispense to rebates and does not, uh, also creates challenges in terms of operations where cash flows are not going to be simple to handle. So for that, visibility and architecture is going to be very important as well. So Mudassar,
I
would you
want
like
to
to?
add, yeah, I want to add some of the things here that most TPA today operate with the fragmented systems. Like they are ingesting the claims through CSVs, FTP drops, old scripts, and the rules that spread across the multiple tools, which could be any. Like some of the TPAs has their own legacy systems. Plus, some of them are using switch providers, for ingestion of data, but this makes the traceability difficult and creates a fragility when adding the beacon and ESP on the top. So our utility solves this by centralizing the ingestion process. Then we have validation process, and then in the final result, we are going to transform the data into one consistent engine. So everything is on one platform. It replaces that the spaghetti stack that with a reliable, repeatable, and audit friendly pipeline that we are building for this era.
Great. Thanks a lot, Dasa. And what you just described, I have that paved out here in form of a slide as well, how our system behaves and handles these things. Obviously, we need to understand that what a claim engine should be and what its blueprint should look like when we are talking specifically about Beacon. So I think about a beacon ready claims engine is in one simple picture is just summarized as by Mudassar as well, and how the process should follow regardless of the tech stack that TPAs are following. This is more about the workflow and orientation of the technologies and right tools in right order to optimize the process and its performance as well. So ingestion obviously means bringing in the claims in from all sources, which could be switch providers and potentially through the split billing softwares that can help TPS bring in the medical claims as well. And then obviously normalizing, mapping everything into its own TPS own internal claims engine, so that at least they are able to best interpret the data, take it through the process internally first of all, such as it could be rules and the rules could include program rules set up by HRSA or the manufacturers, the rebate environment rules that have been communicated by manufacturers and obviously are going to be emphasized or implemented through Beacon platform. Submitting the claims to the Beacon and ESP platforms is obviously going to be very crucial as well, which will obviously have its own technical and infrastructure requirements depending on the tool and tech stack that you're using, and obviously its own requirements in terms of data fields and the kind of information it requires to process a particular claim. Now, last step obviously is tracking, and tracking does not just happen at the end of the process, it goes throughout the process. There always should be a version maintained of the claim that came in in its raw form, and then the claim that was submitted to Beacon and what happened to it. Pulling in that information and bringing it all together in one story, in one page, is going to be very crucial as well. So, if now as we understand that these are very straightforward and important aspects into the technology that should would be able to support the beacon and rebate era, and obviously keep supporting the previous discount program as well, such as ESP, and potentially help you support more platforms in the upcoming days, which may be even Truzo or any else coming up. So if you don't design these consciously, they still exist, but as a tangle of scripts and manual steps. In RxFiler, we build these five as explicit stages, but even if you build your own engine, this is a useful checklist for you to, formalize each step in its own entirety and make sure that you're handling it very well with all its requirements as well. Uh, so, so where do these stages live for you, and are you happy with that? Is going to be very crucial for you to answer here. Moving forward, this is a more of a discussion and explanation of the stage one and two of the process that we were just talking about. Stage one is obviously ingestion of the claims, very simple in concept at least, that how claims arrive in the TPA world, in the TPA systems. In practice, that means it could be SFTP drops, maybe a REST API, maybe direct feeds connected through the covered entity or pharmacy systems. But the key is to standardize as a small set of patterns and tag everything appropriately, so the record is clear. So, for example, which covered entity the claim is for, which site of pharmacy the claim was originated from, which date range it has, such as the different dates required as part of the claim fields, which version of the claim is valid and needs to be sent to the Beacon or ESP platform. So that is sort of the information that needs to be filled in for each claim that comes in, so that stage two becomes into place as well, which will be normalization. So instead of letting every source dictate its own shape forever, you define a canonical claim schema. These are the fields, formats, or codes you can use internally in your system to have at least the process on your end well structured and defined. So every incoming field, field, data field, and the feed itself is mapped into that canonical shape first. That decouples your internal logic for whatever you're talking to on the outside. So Beacon, ESP, future vendors such as Truzo, and making adding new covered entities or partners significantly less painful. So this definitely supports that. Stage three is completely about rules and eligibility. Stage three is the layer, the brain of the engine. At this point, claims are cleaned up, normalized. Now it is decided whether they are actually eligible for or beacon submissions or ESP submissions, or there will be only internal errors that will be reported on them. So the covered entities can double check with them, and maybe future iterations of the claims can be improved based on the possible causes of failure that can arise. Now, this means combining several logics, of course, the 340B rules, program rules, eligibility, child size, carve-in, carve-out rules, and the Medicaid coordination as well. Rebate model rules, specific drug lists, as we know, only those will be eligible for rebate as provided by HRSA. Date windows, payer requirements, and sites lists that are already registered by manufacturers or will be registered by manufacturers to allow you to follow the rebate program on those specific sites only. Then obviously manufacturer specific rules also come in. Each of them have defined clear look back periods. They have their own list of orphan drugs, which will be applied to specific covered entities. They have limited distribution network logics as well installed and provided in their documentation, and will be implemented through Beacon. Now, recommendation that we have from our end is regarding this particular step is don't bury this in random code. Treat it as a visible version rules layer that you can explain to a covered entity, to a manufacturer, or to your own compliance team. That's exactly how we have approached it in RxFiler as well, but the principle applies regardless of the tool. So the most important part is how the process is taken up, how the visibility is provided in visibility is provided into the configuration of these rules. And so everybody is well aware of what happened to a claim and why it was rejected under a certain rule. And if that rule was ever updated, then obviously the traceability and record will need to be maintained in order to provide substantial information into even claims that were processed through the system quite a few time ago. Stage 4 and 5, submissions tracking and exceptions as well. Obviously, stage 4, as we described, is very crucial. Submission to platforms will need to be handled. And obviously, we don't expect covered entities to submit their own claims to the Beacon or ESP channels, although they do have the ability to do so. But since they are running their operations through a dedicated TPAs, so once a claim passes those rules that the TPA has set up, they will be mapped out into the formats that Beacon and ESP requires, depending on which platforms they are eligible for, and potentially coming in more platforms such as Tuzo as well. So their requirements will need to be adhered in this process to identify if the claims need to go that particular platform. This keeps platform specific configurations and requirements isolated instead of spread through your engine. Stage 5 is tracking and exceptions, where there may be many teams that we understand are the weakest at the moment, because exceptions that Beacon is bringing along with it are going to be much broader than what ESP used to provide. People who have implemented ESP SDKs into their platforms and are directly submitting to those platform would understand that the visibility it provides through the claim level data is not is very significantly less as compared to Beacon, which is obviously a much more mature and the new era platform, which we can call it. Ideally, every claim has a life story: when you received it, when it was normalized, which version of a rule it hit, whether it went to Beacon or ESP, and whether it was accepted or rejected, and obviously the reason for that as well. You also want a way to surface exceptions in missing identifiers, invalid combinations, maybe timing issues. In a way, the operation team from yourself, from your TPA organization, and the covered entity can actually work to understand the impacts of those issues have been causing. That's what turns a collection of file drops into an engine you can defend and also improve over time as you grow forward. Moving along, we have patents versus anti-patents. So summarizing all of our discussion so far into possible action items for the upcoming days for you and your TPA and your technology team, we're going to turn those into very concrete do's and don'ts. Good patterns will obviously include having a single well-defined canonical claim schema, which can combine claims coming from all sources, so they can go through similar processes and at least internally because of all the logics, and they don't need to run through multiple workflows for different platforms where checks and rules are similar. They can go through them at once only. And obviously, with comprehensive versioning of those rules is going to be very, very important as well. And unified logging for the full claim life cycle, Beacon and ESP. would ideally sit on top of your system as adapters where you will just plug and play to submit claims and get the responses back. And so increasing platforms requirements can be handled in those areas regarding regardless of how your system behaves, those parts will not be impacted and can be handled by a separate infrastructure itself. Now, anti-patents. Obviously, things to avoid. There are quite a lot that that were to avoid, but somehow that has gone through the technology's adaptation point of view has still come through. So, if moving forward you are in the stage where you're redefining things or optimizing things or thinking about building things from a new perspective, so anti-patents should be neglected there and obviously removed. So manufacturer rules scattered across SQL, Python, and spreadsheets should be avoided. Each ETL job embedding its own interpretation, submission treated as fire and forget as SFTP drops. So and so no easy way for replaying all the process that has gone through. So that sort of thing should be avoided. And obviously here we have a very important point to answer as well. And lastly, we also have a key question to ask yourself and or your IT team because it really matters in the current environment, and this should be asked right now without any further ado. For example, if a covered entity challenges a rebate outcome and hands you a claim, then you need to answer the question that how quickly you can reconstruct the story of what you did with the claim and why. If the answer is not quickly enough, then that's where the engine work should start, and so that's where you would need to attend to the technical requirements and understand where the lags are, so you can improve on that. Lastly, speaking about how we have handled this in RxFiler, specifically talking about we build RxFiler as infrastructure for TPAs and 340B service providers to help TPAs cover the gaps between required technology in the rebate era. And you, as a TPA, will keep covered entity relationships as you are. And we will help power the engine underneath that, will strengthen your relationships moving forward and optimize your operations that will allow you to provide more value to your covered entities and obviously handle the most crucial and necessary requirements as well. So we ingest medical and pharmacy claims. For now, it's via SFTP or APIs. We normalize them into our internal models. We run rebate era rules in a central rules layer, and then generate beacon and ESP ready submissions from those claims, and process that pass through the internal logics and checks, and are found eligible to be submitted to those platforms. And obviously, a determination has to be made whether the claim will be submitted to beacon or ESP. So for each claim, we track where it went, what happened, and whether it was accepted or not, what were the exceptions reasons. So you can answer hard questions from covered entities and manufacturers whenever needed to. And now for you, it's that whether you build your own engine or plug into ours, the goal is the same: have at least one engine that behaves like this instead of a pile of scripts, uh, to be able to perform better in the rebate era. Lastly, what we have is a checklist and what's next, and what your team should be taking out of this webinar and start working on a few items. Obviously, suggestions from our end, but understanding your own systems and operations better, you will be able to identify more gaps that you will need to fill in. But first of all, map your current flows against the five-stage engine that we have just described. Then tracking happen today in your current operations, in your current system, if you have one. Is any of that just sitting in someone's head or in a fragile script? Second, and importantly, define or refine your canonical claim schema. Even a first draft is better than letting each feed dictate your internal structure. So have a strong internal structure would allow you to keep logics and audits very clear and to the point as well. Third, develop beacon and ESP and manufacture logics into a single rules layer that you can version and explain as part of your process, and to covered entities as well, to make them understand that how you are going to process the claims. And once a claim is processed, then the storyline can be built easily. Fourth, invest in basic logging and exception handling so you can tell the story of a claim from input to submission to outcome, which will be targeted to be a rebate, obviously. And finally, be honest about what you want to build yourself. versus where it makes sense to plug in infrastructures like RxFiler. If you would like to have a sanity check on your Beacon and ESP plan, feel free to reach out to us as well. And we are happy to do a short architecture review with TPAs and your 340B vendor teams. So our contract details are also available here on the slide. Thanks a lot for watching, and obviously you can subscribe to our newsletter to be part of the live webinars that we are going to attend, and keep up with the latest updates that Beacon and ESP are bringing, and how that impacts your technology decisions. Thanks a lot at the end
All
for and
right. Thank you very much, Salman and Mudassir, for this detailed session. So I really hope that this gave you a clear foundation of on what HRSA is bringing and what is the new rebate model. With HRSA changes coming closer, it's inevitable to stay informed and aligned with all the updates. So we'll keep coming up with the new changes and new update information in our upcoming sessions. If you have any questions, you can reach to our teams. Thank you.
Yeah. Bye.